Okay, so I've got this fine row of blocks lined up, but they're really supporting the formers to keep them upright. So I've got this part here, which is called RK1, and that goes in here like this, and that part's flush with the top of that former, so I'm not worried about anything overhanging. And I've got RK2, which is this curved bit here, which the wing comes off here, tapers back, so this is the swoopy bit, and this sits just there like that. I've got also I've got this piece here, K6, which that sits onto. There is a stringer that goes back here that it probably goes onto actually. So yeah, so I'll have to put some of these stringers in, I think, before I can fit that piece. So that's quite nice, isn't it, the way that sits there. Let's just move these out the way a minute. That sort of gives it a real bit of shape, because I was going to take it off the board at this stage, but I think with hindsight, no, I'll leave it there, because it actually sort of protects it all as one. I haven't glued it yet though. Ultimately, this needs to be hollowed out, and this one, and this one, and the former, because the fan has to be able to pull the air in. So I think perhaps we could fit some stringers and move on from there. So I'll see what 1/8 I've got. If I haven't got any more than this little strip, then I'll have to strip some up. Okay, I've got a couple of strips. That's a little bit on the soft side really. I've got a couple of 1/8 strips, which feels quite nice, a little bit soft. I've got this piece of 1/8 here, which is quite hard. Not too hard though, so I'm thinking I might strip some of this up, because this bit here is fine. I'll get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14. Yeah, okay, let's use this. I'll strip this up. I'll keep these 1/8 for a minute. You cut halfway through with your balsa stripper, just over halfway, and turn it over and do the other half. Then you'll find the cut, if the base slightly off, it'll finish off. So being completely angled, you'll have a very little ridge, which works quite well. I'll finish cutting all these guys and I'll be right back. 14 links. Okay, now I've got to make sure that this is down, so let's put some weights on it. I think this one goes full length. That would make sense. Like that. K5, yeah. Okay, I've got to cut out one called K5, which I haven't cut yet, which goes in here. Then the stringer goes on top of it, I think. So let's just cut this one out. It's a hard bit of balsa. If I do that like that, it can't move. Okay, while I'm at it, I've done another K6. Fits there nicely. Fits in the back beautifully. I think I'll do now is just to drop some CA on that. That goes from there, clips into these side ones here, and then ends there. I might use white glue on these actually. Okay, now what I'm going to do is add some stringers. I can put this one in here. This is a dead straight one that goes from there to there. Got to say, I'm really enjoying this build. Now this one's got a slight bend to it, so it might be prudent to steam it. Let me get my steamer out, guys, and I'll show you it in use. Okay, what I'm going to do is get my piece of wood, see where it needs steaming, and sometimes it bends more, sometimes it bends more easily one way than the other. So, but this seems, I'm going to put it that way round. We just heat it up in the steam. Obviously steam's hot, so don't go getting yourself burned. I'm just going to do this over an open kettle if you want. Although I learnt the other day that, I don't know if it's true, if you guys over in the States don't have electric kettles much. We'll see how it goes. Another thing you can do actually is to soak the piece of wood a bit first, just for sort of 30 seconds. It just helps the steam to get into the wood grains. You want to bend it a little bit further than you need because it always springs back slightly unless you sort of pin it down quick. So just let that cool a minute. Only needs a gentle curve on this piece. So there you are. That's a curved piece of wood. Is it curved enough? Let's have a look. Nope. Curve it a little bit more. I think it would have helped if I'd, tell you what, oh, I've got my spray here. Let's just spray it with water. It's the equivalent, isn't it, of dunking it in a sink of water. I think these steamers are actually designed for sort of getting creases out of clothing and stuff. It's a bit more civilised than doing it over a kettle. Let's just hold that out of the steam for a second. So I've got a nice curve going on it there. Too curved. Let's just straighten it slightly. Won't take much to straighten it. Let's just turn that off a minute. Steaming in my face. It just puffed. He objected to me turning it off. It's got an AI in it. How dare you, Cliff? These little puffs. There we are. That's a nice fit, and it's not under any strain now, so I can safely set that into position. And I know it's not going to sort of contort anything. I don't have to glue it yet. I can let it dry. It doesn't matter. But I've got the other one to do this side. I know you can also bend it in an ammonia solution. I think a lot of window cleaners have ammonia in them. So I believe. Let it cool. Okay. This is just so satisfying, I've got to say. There we go. Two very interesting pieces of bent wood. Now this area here is sheeted for strength. The inside formers, there's no notches. It just marks, there's just a mark where in theory the stringer should glue. Look at that, they're gorgeous. Really odd pieces of wood there because they're bent that way and slightly that way, but that's the beauty of balsa, isn't it? Put a reasonable amount of glue in there because it is end grain in there basically on the two sides. Well, it is end grain, no basic about it. Okay, let's pop this one in. The glue helps it to slide in actually, as long as it doesn't help it to pop out as well. As long as it's flush with the top, there won't be any sanding to do or anything. So nice. Do the same this side, and you get the idea now, guys. I shall cut each stringer one by one and steam it and fit it. So when I've got that sort of done and it's taken shape, I'll bring you back and you can see how it's turned out, because I'm not going to rush this. There's no rush. I'm enjoying every single part and every moment I'm spending in here. It's precious. Right then, guys, that's all the stringers in. I've turned the fuselage around to complete the stringers, which will be on the top. Yeah. So yeah, I'll let this set overnight, and tomorrow we'll take it off and have a look at it, and I'll trim the ends, and then I'll set up the other side. I shall have to turn the plan over to build it on. Whatever you do, it's not a good idea to make two sides of the same. Done that, haven't we all? So I've turned the plan over, I've oiled it, and as you can see it's nicely see-through, so that will now, well actually it doesn't go like that, it goes like that. So the most important thing usually is to get the formers lining up exactly, but if you remember, at least I hope I remember, I lined them up to the front of the position here. So without further ado, that one goes to the front as well. Let's crack on with it. That will line up with that one. I've pinned down the keel and I've just offered up F1, and now I'm going to work my way through F2, 3, 4, etc. Perhaps I'll start at F8, I think, actually, because it's going to be working against myself otherwise. So this is the top, so the former goes that way up, and I have to refer back to this one because I made small modifications to it as I went, so I want to duplicate those modifications exactly. So I'll get my file and I shall build this side in exactly the same way. Where is it? Over here. I shall build this side in exactly the same way as I built the port side. I'm going to take my time, I'm going to enjoy the build, and I'll see you back when I've got a bit more done, because I've already filmed you what doing that side. Okay, see you back soon, guys. Okay, guys, nearly done here, as you can see. putting these weights on across the middle like this has been fantastic because it's held it flat. Although I've steamed the stringers, it guarantees that there's no springiness in them. Okey-doke. This is kind of a moment of truth. It's pretty good up to there. I might recut these pieces out of a harder piece of wood, we'll see. But yeah, look at that. There is the beginnings of a fuselage. The formers line up reasonably well, not too bad. Maybe that one's a little bit out in the middle, but I think it could move back slightly actually. Go together nicely on the bottom, but look at that. Doesn't that look rather fantastic? Now what I've got to think about is I can't just glue the halves together because I have to get the motor in. So my options are to fix it in position and glue it together, make a hatch possibly on the bottom to slide it into. Don't know if that would work. Of course the fuselage is wider as it goes forward, but I was thinking that it would go about here because I can't go too far forward else I'm going to be grossly nose heavy. Ideally the further back the better, and then I got the option of bigger or smaller 3S battery at the front depending on the weight distribution. So it will physically fit back there. I will have to, I mean if I don't want to cut the top and bottom keel, then it's got to go very forward, it's got to come in front of F5 there. But the centre of gravity is, where is it? It is marked here. Oh, just there, just in front of F5. So the centre of gravity is about here. So that being on the centre of gravity, it's going to make it nose heavy because I've got to have a big battery. Unless the battery goes here, which is an option, I'm going to have the servos are in the wings, so that's okay. So if it goes there and the battery goes there, but that would mean making a top hatch here somewhere because I've got to cut out the stringers and put a hatch in somewhere. And I'm just thinking I've got the cockpit sitting on the top. It'd be nice if the cockpit came off with the hatch, so quite a big hatch here to encompass the entire cockpit, unless the hatch is underneath, which it could be. That's where it's going to go, I think, just there. So I've got to hollow out these formers here and here to allow the air to come in, and then I've got to hollow out the rear ones to allow the air to go out. But these have to be opened right up, possibly even cut right back. I might even end up replacing the triangular bits with the stringers going from here to here and take these out completely to get as much air in as possible. And then that's going to possibly have an angle like that inside. This is something similar to what I did with the Vampire. I just made it out of paper. So I could have thin balsa going from here to there to take the air to the intake of the ducted fan. So you're beginning to see now I cannot glue it together yet because there's a bit of construction or destruction to do inside the fuselage, if that's to go there. So yeah, a little bit more to think about, a little bit more to tidy up. When I've got something decided, I'll come back to you guys and we can share the next stage together. Lovely stuff. If you're enjoying the video, guys, hit that subscribe button so as not to miss future parts. See you soon. Now, a little interlude, guys. This EDF is starting to look really big and heavy to me, and I remembered I had another one, a 45mm EDF unit, and I'm going to test the thrust because the instructions say that it's good for, on 2S, it's good for 200 and something grams. Let's have a quick look to remind myself. Yeah, online it reckons it's good for 328 grams of thrust on 2S, up to 436 on 3S. So I've charged up a 3S battery. It's only 25C, but hopefully it'll be enough to do the job. It also gives me the wattage that it should be producing as a drawing, so we'll see. We'll see. So what I've done, a very simple test. I've taped it into a tube. I've got a couple of outlets, and I'm going to put it on there, the scale, and I'm going to sort of steady it as I rev it up, and we'll see the sort of grams. I know it's only a very rough test, but it's going to be interesting to give a rough idea, because I know a lot of the time these figures are pie in the sky, really. So let's boot it up. I think this is paired. Let's have a look. That's a good sign. I've not run this motor ever before, so we'll look on the meter in a minute exactly what sort of readings we're getting. Yeah, it's on 12.5 volts, which is 3S, just about. So let's fire her up. Switch that on. It's showing 0 grams, so I'm going to have to sort of steady it a bit. So here goes. And of course it's running backwards. So it's not going to produce any grams there, is it? Let's just switch a couple of these leads. Panic there, it touched my hand. Just panicked, let it go. This isn't very good, is it? Let's have a look at the reading. So it wasn't even full throttle. It's saying it drew 27 amps, was that? So have a look. 300 watts. So it wasn't full throttle, it's saying 359 watts, so I can believe that. I think I saw 300 and something there. That's as much as I'm going to do, I think. So it's saying 20 amps at 214 watts. I'm going to go with this EDF. I think it's more than powerful enough to fly the Swallow. Easier to fit and not as sort of brutal. So I'll keep this for a bigger EDF, and I'm going to go with the 45mm EDF unit from AORC, which is actually Dancing Wings, and so I've got a much lighter setup, so the model should fly longer, but with that amount of thrust I think it's going to be a cracking little model. So yeah, let's carry on. Cheers. One of the beauties of this is I can move it a little bit further back than the bigger one, and that's going to help with the centre of gravity. So I'm thinking I'll move it back to about here. It'll also need a smaller, I'm thinking if I cut out, well, first of all, I'll take the two halves apart and I'll open up some of these well, open this one up for start, this former, and I'm going to put, I'll open up this, I'll open up this. This is before I sheet it. This will be open, this will be open, that'll be there, and I can bring a sort of a shape like that going on to guide the air through into the structure there. So just put a couple of bits of balsa inside here, or primarily there actually, and that will take the air in, through, open this one up, and then it can draw it straight in like that. If I need more, I can always open up a cheat hole in the bottom. I think that'll work. So I'm going to mount this one in here somewhere. I might even cut a hole in this former and then beef this former up with plywood, and then that can slide into there and that'll hold it really well. Am I going to permanently fix it? Probably. I hesitated there. I'm thinking probably, because if it burns out or something silly goes on, I can still slope saw it and I won't need to use the motor anyway. And again, the further back it goes means the bigger battery I can have in the front to balance it, gives me more airtime. As you know, these things burn through batteries really quick. So that can go there. I'll open those up, open that up. That means I don't have to open this former up at all, other than access for cables. It's not going to help if that's open or not. And then I can think about a hatch on the top side. So that's enough to be getting on with, I think. Right, I've amended the design for the exhaust flute, guys. I'm not going to use this. Instead, just the weight of this is the same weight as the fan unit itself. I don't really want to put that much weight in the back, so I've made a shortened version. There's another version which looks pretty much the same actually, but slightly different. So what I plan on doing is fitting it and put in a plastic celluloid extension tube out the back. So, and it'll just be hot glued into position. Now these lugs have come in quite handy because, as you will see, this fits in here. This is just a push fit. I'll probably drill a couple of holes and put tiny little screws through just to make sure it doesn't go anywhere, but they fit, the lugs I'm talking about now, the lugs fit just there, resting against this former, so it can't come forward, which is one of the things I was obviously concerned about. You can't have it coming forward. And then this one will fit in a similar vein, in a groove in the side. I think you can't plan this stuff out in advance really, it just sort of grows, doesn't it? So the fan unit will sit there like that. I'm actually holding the fan unit now on the lugs. They're just under the surface. I might trim them very slightly. I had screw holes in them, but I think I'll just epoxy them in. And with the little screws in there, that'll stop it from going anywhere. In fact, I'll probably put the screws in about here just to make sure, like that. So that's going to sit there like that, really nice. So how is the air going to get into it? Okay, I need to remove the bulk of the wood here. I can't just remove it all because it'll fall apart, at least until I've got the sheeting on the top. Of course the side will be glued in anyway, but that aside, what I'm going to do is to remove all the wood here. I've marked on the top here, well, I've just put a line across. There's no point in hollowing this one out because it's behind the fan, so I'm going to remove the wood in the front, the wood up to that line there, and none in the back. And to strengthen things up, I thought I'm really pleased with that actually, really pleased. Cut a couple of exhaust tubes to go on the back as well. That was glued straight on the back and shaped into a round shape. So what's next? Yes, I can't just cut these out. Ideally they want to not be there at all to allow for maximum airflow in. But once they're sheeted, I won't be able to remove them, and there won't be anything to stick the sheet to. So I had an idea. I've got a bit of 1/16 ply here. If I just stick a piece there on the inside, top and bottom, I'm only losing a very small amount of intake area. Don't forget, I can always cheat and open a panel up in the bottom if I need more intake. So if I glue a piece there and a piece there, then I can hollow it out, because if I just hollow it out now as well, it'll just split across there so easily. Same with that one, except it'll only need to go well up to that line. You can go further, of course it won't hurt. And that's not hanging down too much to impede the airflow. So that's what I'm going to do, and not at the back. So yeah. And then also I can hollow out this former here so as I get maximum air into the structure. I did cut out a plywood disc to go in here, but it's not actually needed. That's come way up. I'm not going to use it because it sort of gets in the way of the motor. That sort of went like that. Oh, no, she's broken it there, but it's nothing. So I'm not going to use that because of the lugs. I thought I'd have to beef that up to sort of glue to it, but because the lugs are behind that former, it can't go anywhere. Okay guys, good progress here. I've taken out the centre of the middle two centre section supports, and beefed them up with the 1/16 square plywood on the inside. I've also put a couple of gussets on that one just to save it getting knocked. So I'm just offering up templates. So this is how the inside is going to go. It's going to scoop the air in. It's going to travel through here. It'll have all four sides. Basically this is a tube. I don't want air coming into this area. It's got to all be funneled back into the fan, and the fan itself, as you just saw before it fell out, is going to go in here, just there like that. So I think that's going to do the job. I put a couple of uprights here to make sure that that doesn't collapse, especially when I'm working on it. I think that is going to do the job. And then the back end, I've got enough room paired away from the keel here to put on just a tube in either celluloid, or I was just thinking even paper, but paper might, I don't know. So that's looking really nice. When that's lined out, I can then glue on the rib that goes on the outside here and think about plating it in. And when both sides are done, and maybe when I've got all the intakes finished, then I can glue the two halves together. Got to make, the other thing I've made, I've cut out while the delays are running. These are the stub braces that fit from the wing diagonally. They go all the way into the centre of the fuselage like that. I replaced the balsa ones with plywood. Basically it's a dihedral braces, and it then glues onto your main spars, I should say, like that. And once these are fitted, you then cut the centre section out, and that will go through it at an angle. That's why it's so wide, it goes through it at an angle. So it's very clever design, very cleverly thought out, but that's just thinking ahead a little bit. So I'll carry on here, and I'll be back when I've got a decent amount of progress made. Nice, really enjoying it, I am. Incidentally, if you're a current subscriber and you want to look at channel memberships, check out the membership tab down below. you'll see there's 4 different levels and what you get for each level. But it's the members who keep the channel running, to be honest. So without your help and support, for which I'm really grateful, I wouldn't be able to buy all this sort of stuff. So take a look at memberships. Cheers, guys. I've stuck the ring on the back because it was falling apart a lot because I was sanding it. It's still in 2 halves, but that's okay. When I stick it together fully, I've got this one to go on the back again to shape it a bit into a nice rounded shape. So I've sanded enough of this rear former here. It's virtually all gone, but the stringers are holding the position. But I needed to take most of that out to create a tube. Mike Parker commented just now, but he uses parchment paper. I shall use something very similar to that, and either celluloid or parchment paper would work. So I've finished making the holes through. I'm not sure if I should leave this center post in or not. You can see it in there. It shouldn't cause too much of a problem, especially if I take the inlet tubes past there to there. It won't cause any problem at all. I have to see how the tube goes. Now, what am I going to make the tube out of? Am I going to use balsa or am I going to use paper? If I use balsa, the grain would have to be vertically on this little bit that goes across the front. The piece that I use there, that would have to be vertical grain. That would work all right because it would curve around nicely. I have used paper before, reinforced with CA, super glue, cyanoacrylate. That would work. Yeah, it goes off pretty hard if you soak it with CA, but I need to have a bottom piece, a side piece, a top piece, and 2 sides and a top. Could be a bit fiddly getting it all to go in there. So I'm thinking initially I might try and, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll cut some paper templates and transfer it to balsa. This wants to be thicker, a little bit wider rather. Transfer it to balsa. I think it's just a case of fiddling around and getting it in. It doesn't need to be together to do that. The beauty of this is the cone is actually slightly off to one side, which I think will help a bit getting it in there. It'll be something like that. That's not bad actually, is it? It's just about there, look. There we are, that's not far out. Good. Okay, I'm going to play with these intake parts and I'll come back to you very soon, I hope. Okay, what about that then? I've used 1/32 or 1mm balsa, cut some templates out and made a little inner tube. So that goes, it's blocked off there, nothing happens there. It comes out here into this area and gets sucked into the fan. So I can't do any more than that. I think that's pretty good. Stiffened everything up dramatically as well. What I think is now I will do the same to the other side, and then I can progress by sticking these on, although I might leave those just yet actually. I can think about, I'm getting closer and closer to sticking the 2 halves together. Before I do that though, I've got to make a hole in here for the cabling for the ESC. and which will be mounted probably in the base here somewhere. And then actually I think I might, because I've got to cut a hatch here, I think I might put a second former here so as I can cut the stringers. I think that might be an idea as well. So there's a little bit to do yet, but yeah, there we go. Quite happy with that. Each side was slightly different. That was wider than the bottom piece, but cut one piece already, just traced around it, so it's ready to go on the other side. But there. Okay, I've made a fuss tube out of paper. It goes a little bit tapered, a little bit more than I would have liked. To be honest, I'm not sure what percentage it is, but short of cutting the fuselage down, that's what it's going to be. So I'm just going to run the motor up. I ran it up just now, and it seemed to be quite powerful, so I'll show you guys. Hold tight now.
Engine on.
Trust me, that is
Engine off.
a very powerful little motor. But yeah, there we go. So I'm happy with that. So what I'm going to do now is to make up a proper fussed tube and fix it onto the motor, and then I can put the two bits together and fix the motor into position. I made a bit of a boo-boo actually, guys. Let me disconnect this and tell you about it. Well, I say a boo-boo, it is a boo-boo, but one that I think I can overcome. But I was going steaming ahead with the air intakes, and I was completely forgetting that there is the main spar coming in from the wing both sides, which goes right through the air intake positions. On the original model, it didn't matter because it was JetX and not ducted fan. But basically, you've got your main spars, which are built into the wing, which are 16th ply. Well, they are in my case. They're built into the actual ribs and main spars, and when you're happy, you make a hole through this rib and feed it through to the slots in the centre of the fuselage, because that takes it pretty much, just looking down it, yeah, pretty much through the centre of the air intakes. So they're junk, and I've had to go to plan B. Now plan B is going to be 4mm carbon tube. It's got a hole through the middle, but it's incredibly strong. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this for the top spar, and I'm going to bring it straight through, and yes, it will go through the centre of the inlet, which will slow things down to a certain extent. But I had an idea to also, yes, I could knock a couple of holes in the bottom here to make more inlets, easily done, but I thought it might be fun to conceal them. If I get these bits on, I can show you. That's upside down. If I put that on, I've remade these, by the way. I've cut them out on the laser. Let's just put them on roughly. So the bottom of this is sheeted. I'll probably use 1/32 sheet, but I was thinking what I could do is to make, and that goes in up here, so it's going across there. If I make an opening in the bottom of this, that part of it there, that's what I'm thinking, something like that. That's what I'm thinking. I'm also thinking I might put some either sheet on this bottom bit here, because it's going to land and possibly puncture if I tissue it. I'm not sure if I'm going to yet, but yeah, that was a little boo-boo. I was so pleased with cracking on with this. I forgot that it was going through. So there you go. So I've got to get some of this 4mm, and to make life easy for myself, I cut the ribs out on the laser. That'll go on the outside of the there, glue it on like that. These slots are, you think they're a little bit sloppy, but no, they've got to go in at an angle yet, so I have to cut those at an angle. So that'll tighten it up lovely. Same with the bottom, I'm just going to use 1/8 balsa on the bottom. Again, it's sloppy, but it's a small hole. They're going to be cut in at an angle and glued, so yeah, there we are. So that's a successful test of the fuss tube. I'm happy with that. So still a little bit more head scratching to go. Primarily, that's the top. Primarily thinking of a hatch. See, if I just cut these now, they'll spring straight. So I've got to get the formers in, get them glued in. Then when they're glued in, then I can cut the stringers and lift it out. How much of it needs to be cut? Well, just the width of a battery. So I think just the first two will be fine. No point in going down there. And the other thing I did actually, as a CG check with the motor in, just placing the battery on the nose, it seemed, well, it was nose heavy. So I probably won't run a 2200 3S. I'll probably go for something a bit smaller. Unless perhaps I can bring the battery further back. Yeah, I'll have to see. Obviously smaller battery capacity gives me a shorter flight time, but a quicker charge. I reckon 2 minutes of flying this beast, some sort of throttle setting, it's going to be, I'll be ready for a rest after 2 minutes. Oh boy, I'm loving it. So not thinking of that was the first serious mistake I've made. Yeah, okay, let's crack on. See you back soon. I've made a tube out of card and I've just put a couple of very small screws into the actual casing of the fan to stop it moving. So I'm going to glue the card onto the back here, just a little bit of CA. But the tube doesn't sit square, as you can see. It's angled slightly down because it's that's the angle of things in here. So to get the just to get the angle right, I'll just pop that where she sits, which is just about there, and then put the tube on. My only slight reservation is the smallness of the hole at the back, but it is, as they say, what it is. If I find it needs to be more, then I'll just have to cut some out. So there we are. That's how the tube sits, and that will be going on the end as well. But I'm going to cut this down flush with the back of the fuselage when it's done. So let's just put a small amount of CA around just to hold it. Okay, be a bit more gentle with it. Do this side. Okay, so there's my fussed tube fitted. Because what I plan to do is to glue the two halves together in a minute. It goes in there. I need to connect the ESC up while I can still get to it. And also I've cut out a slot for the battery hatch and for various cables in the ESC. And I've been thinking about the hatch. I'm going to take off this bit here, but I'm going to join the two bits together first so as I can look at sawing across all in one. So I'll work that out in a minute. But it was important to get these holes cut easily while I had the opportunity. So let's connect up the ESC. So the ESC is actually partly in this intake cooling, which is good. Okay, well that's how it goes. So I'm going to put the battery, it's going to go in here. the receiver probably underneath here, and this will be accessible from the top. So there we are. Okay, here we go. Big step. Can't think of any other reason not to do it now. Now I think we're good to go. So let's go. Just going to wipe a bit of white glue on this end grain. Okay, this is it, guys. Let's go for it. Thing to get right, oops, is the fan area. That's straight in, beautiful. Get a couple of bands on there just to hold it while I get some pegs out and make any fine tune adjustments. Alright, what I think I'll do is put on another couple of rubber bands and let that dry, then we can come back to it and have a look and start doing a little bit more. Major step forward, guys. Major step forward. Haven't sanded any of the fuselage yet, but these outer rails are glued on. Still got these to go back on, which could go on now. They need to be sanded to a point before I can sheet it. But as I said earlier, I want to increase the airflow into the motor a bit if I'm going to put a bit of 4mm carbon through the middle of that. I just ordered some from our good friends up at Model Shop Leeds in the UK. Excellent customer service and speed of delivery. Check them out. So I'm not sponsored by them. Not on this video anyway. So I was thinking, to get more air in there, I could have a... Oh, there is one thing I did think of as well. I've made two little slots here for the aileron cables to come through. And I'm going to bring them through from the wing. I'll pass them through this little gap here and into the receiver area. So that's what those are for, and I can put those in afterwards. I'm sure I can thread it through and get it through that little slot. So the next thing, I can either work on cutting out a cockpit, or I can work on maybe sheeting the bottom of this and putting a sort of a small scoop in it. If I'm going to do that, then I really do need to sand this down to an aerofoil profile, and also these pieces, which go something like that. Like that. So that needs to be aerofoiled down. Yeah. So I have to sand this down, shave it, carve it, whatever. So shall I take a little bit off this while it's easier to get to? I think maybe yes. So let's have a little go. Just get the most of it, because this bit of wood is actually quite hard. And it's not going to be easy to sand particularly easily. bit off the bottom as well, I think. Let me keep carving around it, playing around with this, guys, and I'll come back to you as soon as I've got it, well, ready to glue in, if not glued in. Bit more progress. I put on some covering on this side. I've used 1/32 balsa. It's quite hard, and I've put this great big, this is the underneath, put this great big cheat hole in, so it can also suck air in through here into the fan. So one of those either side is going to be more than enough. Now that's underneath. I've also lined it with plywood because it can be used to launch the model. So holding it like that, I put ply on the inside of this spar, and there's plenty of room to get your hand in there to give it a nice launch. So I'm quite pleased with that. You won't see that underneath. So next job is to do the same on the top. Although before I do that, I think I'll do the other side because I can refer back to it then if I need to. So yeah, nice little bit of progress. Looks nice. Pleased. You know, I had a thought. I think I might leave the top pieces off until I've built the wings, because it's going to be easier to make the hole through to the center section. And also I'm thinking I might pick up the rear spar position, which is just sort of keys into here. So I think I might extend it a little bit further, because I'm not going to use 1/8 balsa. I'm going to use 1/8 hardwood, and then the wing join will be really strong, I hope. So I'll probably leave the top open. So just got the bottom to finish, and I think those holes are pretty impressive. There's not going to be any problems there of getting a thumb. By the time you got your thumb in there and sort of throwing it. So I'm just going to cut the last piece, which is, I could cut it out of this. It's not bad actually. Let's just cut it across here, and I can trim it to fit and get that on. I'm just going to cut it with scissors. I reckon I can. Yeah, look at that. How easy is that? Cut it slightly in front. Each piece is tailored, isn't it? I'm going to use a combination of white glue and CA. I'm going to use white glue there and down there. Okay. Now just to stop it moving about while I put the CA on, just going to put the peg on it just to hold it in position now a bit. Let's put a little bit on here. Down to there. So that just about completes the underneath. I think we'll stop there, guys, for this week, and I'm going to now progress. I'll cut the hatch out and start the wings probably, or I might build the fin. We'll see in part 3. So if you'd like to hit the like button, I like it, YouTube likes it, and it'll help YouTube give you more videos of the similar ilk to this. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in part 3, and we'll continue a little bit more with the build of the de Havilland 108 Swallow ducted fan conversion. Cheers, guys.